Hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Career Conversations. I'm super excited to have my guest today, Kim Pipkin. She is a commercial real estate broker, founder of Black Kite Consulting. She's also a DEI spokeswoman and advocate. So I would like to welcome Kim to the show. Hello.
Hi, Unika. How are you?
Doing great.
Thank you for having me.
Look, I'm delighted you're here. Thank you so much. I want to talk a little bit about your career journey today. And so I want to start with the commercial real estate broker piece. What does your family think you do when you tell them you're a commercial real estate broker?
They think I sell houses.
The word is commercial. They think you sell houses.
Well, they do. And I think it's largely because people and I don't know which people, but most people think of real estate as being related to housing, even though they understand what some understand what commercial means. Not everybody does, but I think when they imagine it, it's about being a realtor who's selling homes, and they don't think about office buildings per se. Obviously some people do who understand it, but most people think you're selling houses.
Yeah, true. When you say real estate, that's usually the first line is single family home in the suburbs, the picket fence, where you can, have your dog and your children, right?
Totally, right. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
So could you tell me more about what you actually do as a commercial real estate broker?
Well, the commercial real estate industry does include residential, especially if you're like a large scale residential developer who, creates communities. Also the typical office building that you might, work in. It also includes things such as industrial facilities. And we all know who Amazon is, and we need a distribution center. And then it includes other things like life science buildings and manufacturing plants. And I mean, it spans so many building types that oftentimes, you don't really think about it because we just move in those spaces daily. But I actually am I do landlord representation, and I do a tenant representation. And what that means is, for example, let's say you own a building and you have space in it that you want your tenants to be in, I would represent you in seeking new tenants. Now, the other hand would be if I were a tenant or you were a tenant, for example, Unika Incorporated, and you needed 10,000 square feet, and you might want to be in like a Class A building, which is like the best building in downtown Miami, for example. I would help you find the space that was best suited for you. And then, of course, there's the other component, which is investment sales. And I'm going to use you as an example. Let's say you have, a lot of money, you have generational wealth, and you want to invest it so that you have, sustainable income. I would go out and say, maybe buy buildings or property or land that you can invest in, and then, subsequently reap the benefits through dividends or what have you. So again, tenant representation, landlord representation, and investment sales.
So if I wanted to build a television studio or a science lab, I needed space for that, call Kim.
Yes, exactly. All of that. And then also, it could just simply be a matter of me advising you on how best to use your assets. Like if you have lots of money, you might kind of like a stockbroker who says, okay, you might want to invest in, mutual funds, index funds, and then you might want to do some REITs, real estate investment trust, So a commercial real estate professional is also an advisor, which would help you sort of diversify your risk.
Ooh, I learned something cool today because I would have never thought about that when talking about real estate brokers.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your favorite part about being a commercial real estate broker?
Well, I'm relatively new to being a broker. However, I'm not new to being in the built environment. And the built environment encompasses architecture, engineering, construction, and all aspects of the built environment, which does include real estate. They're not separate things. My background, I went to Berkeley for architecture school, and I've done a lot of business development and marketing for the AEC industry. And so subsequently, the value that I bring is that I understand each of those respective industries and what's important to them, right? And how they sort of are woven together.
it sounds like it makes you a powerful broker because you understand the mindset for each party that's involved and how to navigate negotiations.
Yes, yes. I mean, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, there's a lot of people who are, experts in their category, but they oftentimes don't make that connection or that leap to what else is equally as important in a different sort of sector, right? In other words, sometimes architects don't understand what engineering really is about, or maybe brokers don't understand the importance of design. So my background in all of those things, I think, makes me a unique person compared to my peers.
Oh, that's fantastic. So did you always want to be a commercial real estate broker, or how did you shift
I
into
think I
this
may have shared.
area?
I think I may have shared with you the story when I was a little kid that I would go with my mom to visit residential developments, like really large scale ones, thousands of homes, and we would go visit the open houses, and sometimes we would redecorate them or redesign the floor plans, and that's what I thought it was. I thought it was that. I thought real estate was that. But I ended up going to architecture school because I thought that was design. I had it kind of a little bit right, but a lot maybe not so right. And so when I went to architecture school, I realized that where I made my error was what I wanted to be about was the development and on the real estate side, and that was less in the architecture department, and it was really in the it was actually in the business school. So they can tend to be very separate in the curricula. And so anyway, I had to pivot.
Well, it sounds like it all worked out. Like you've been in the architecture, engineering, and construction space, and now you shifted into being a broker for commercial real estate. If you had to do it again, would you do something different?
Well, we've talked about this before. Yes, I mean, truth be told, I would, if I had the do-over, I would probably do over and be like a cultural anthropologist and, like a Jane Goodall but I would also maybe be in higher education and be a faculty member because I love teaching and I love young minds.
Well, it's not too late. Like, so when I get a phone call next year, like, I'm a UC Berkeley adjunct professor in so-and-so department, I will not be surprised.
Yes. I think I might consider being at a, like a Howard or Spelman.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Right? HBCU love forever.
Yes, that would be me.
So Howard, Spelman, you got Kim. You guys are ready.
I would not be there or be teaching, with the, a lot of luminaries.
Oh, lots of great people for sure. Which is why I say you guys should get together. You'd be really great. Yeah. I've personally been grateful for your mentorship and the people you've introduced me to. Like it's been a blessing to get to know you.
Thank you. Likewise.
So, I want to talk a little bit more about what you wanted to be when you were growing up. You said that you used to go to open houses and things with your mom, and that you ended up in architecture school. Was there anything else that inspired your interest in the built environment?
Well, I may have shared before that I lived in a neighborhood of really nice homes. I call it middle and upper middle class. And I lived in a neighborhood that had a small liberal arts college. So I would ride my bicycle on the campus. I was very comfortable being in that sort of, I'm going to call it academic environment, even though I didn't quite understand my role there, but I sort of owned that space because I lived, 3 blocks from a campus. And so that spurred me, to love being, outside, beautiful buildings, things of that nature. But I'll also add that I had 2 families in my neighborhood who owned really beautiful homes. They were African American. One was an architect, and the other one was a CPA. And they had mid-century modern houses with big windows and, avocado green kitchens and things of that nature. I mean, they were fantastic. And so I wanted to live like that. I wanted a house that sort of was distinctive. But my house was distinctive in the fact that it was very well designed also, but it was not a, mid-century modern house. So I was inspired by other people's homes, particularly these 2 families.
Wow. So is there an exam or a test, or what's the process of becoming a commercial real estate broker?
There are two exams that one can take, and one is the sort of standard sales exam that you would take. And in my case, I'm in California, so it would be the California, Department of Real Estate, and you would take the salesperson's exam. And, there's a course that you can take, and then subsequently a test that you would enroll for. You do not have to go to college. You just simply have to pass the exam to become a broker, which is a different category. It's sort of an elevated category. It also requires that you have more experience in selling real estate. And you would take that test after, say, maybe 4 years. I don't remember the exact amount of time. But the thing about being in commercial real estate, particularly to be a broker, and I'm going to differentiate. In the commercial world, people would call me a broker, whereas in the residential world, people would tend to call you a realtor, even though you've taken the same exact test.
Oh,
right. It's just, like when you're in the commercial world, or, we have a way of a language or a vernacular that's unique to our professional lives. But the key thing about it is being a commercial real estate broker is, for the most part, 100% commission, which means you are an entrepreneur. You have to go and pursue your own clients, and you have to nurture them. But most people who are in it would probably work for a big flag, like a big house, like a CBRE, JLL, Cushman & Wakefield, Newmark. There's several brands that you would be familiar with. In smaller markets, you might have distinct ones that, I don't know about, but, they do commercial real estate. So again, it depends on where you live and the opportunity, but it is for people who are not faint at heart.
Right. When you say 100% commission, there's not some, not even a small base salary that means the mortgage gets paid every month out of it. You really have to go out and build those relationships.
Yeah. Now, I will say, again, depending on who you're working for, they may offer a stipend or a draw, right? They may say, okay, we're going to give you, a $25,000 annual draw against your earnings. So you already know that somebody's, loaned you or gifted you, if you will, a certain amount of money to sort of begin to do your operations. One of the challenges, especially for people of color, BIPOC, whichever term we want to use, is that the 100% commission has been like a barrier to entry, because let's say you just got out of college, you might have student loan debt. You may not have, family money that'll support you. And right. So then, even though there's great opportunity to be in commercial real estate, you're starting like at ground zero. That could be scary, right? That could be like, wow, how do I turn, how do I make a deal? And sometimes the deals may not happen for a long time. So that can be a little unnerving. So you do have to be okay with risk and a little, I'm going to say, fearless, and have some grit.
Oh, definitely have some grit. How do you manage the stress of the shift from I guess, being an employee to being an entrepreneur? Like, you've been an entrepreneur for a while. You got Black Kite Consulting, but just for people who are kind of wondering, how does that work?
Something, and I'm thinking before I talk, I don't necessarily think it's any different than when you work for a full-time firm, because remember, employment is at will, right? There's still risk involved. And I think people can tend to think, oh, I have a full-time, job, and I've got all the benefits. But at any given time, that can be taken away from you, or, the company can go under, or they have to change direction, and the business model may not work, and you may not be a fit. So it's all still entrepreneurial. And I would say, even if it's a full-time job, think of it as if it was your own company, and that you were actually, managing your risk and your brand.
That is excellent advice. And I think it probably takes a lot of stress off of people who are considering the shift. It's like, yeah, you have a job today, and in a few hours you could not. Like, how are you saving? How are you managing risk? How are you perhaps reducing your expenses, or whatever it is you need to do to kind of create a net for yourself to be able to get to the next step? And that's a lot of what it sounds like entrepreneurship is, whether you've got a brokerage or firm that's saying here's a amount of money we'll gift or loan you toward your income for the year to get things going, or hey, here's a paycheck and we pay you monthly or weekly or bi-weekly. It's kind of very much the same sort of arrangement.
Right. I mean, because here, think about this. Again, you could say, is this really comfortable with my job 40 hours and I've got, great benefits. The flip side is that, you have to be engaged in that effort, right? You have to create value to your employer or to your clients, whether you work full-time or whether you have your own going concern.
Yes. Yeah. Then there's always, like I said, there's a time commitment, whether it's 40 hours, or I've talked to other entrepreneurs that said, look, in the starting phase, there's no such thing as a 40-hour work week. You're kind of always on. And that can be a challenge as well. How do you find balance?
Well, I'm a yogi, so I try to practice mindfulness, and I also am an athlete, so I work out as much as possible. I mentioned earlier that I have a beautiful garden that I just planted, and things are going well. And then I have a dog. So again, I have different ways that I own my wellness. And plus, I will add, I'm an only child, and I have a pretty strong sense of what I need specifically to keep things okay. But alternatively, I can tend to overcommit myself. And I want to do a lot of things. And I realized that I can't do everything, and I can't do everything well. Right? There's a price to pay for doing too much when you're like, I want to do it all, right? We all want to do a lot of things. Not everybody, but I do.
I suffer from that too. And I've had to kind of have come to Jesus moments of like, okay, you can do 5 things and you'll probably be exhausted and barely sleep. Or you can do 2 or 3 things and probably do 2 of them well and be at peace. And maybe if you just had to put one of those things down, you can pick the other one up later. But yeah, I totally agree. I like the idea you said you own your wellness. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like and what that means?
Well, I would say COVID in particular has made me and maybe others become more aware of what wellness means and what we need. We can think about, we need to eat properly and get enough sleep. I mean, those are sort of the obvious things that we've been told to do for forever. But then for me, it's about creating boundaries.
Yes. Yes.
Creating boundaries, saying no, and not always having to justify why you might say no to people. Right. So that's the owning. And I think COVID has, at least for me, made me really think about where I've exhausted myself, where I've allowed boundaries to be violated. And sometimes, I used to maybe feel bad. I said no, like, oh my God, they don't like me, I'm like feeling self-conscious and, I won't get another chance to do it. And then now, like, no, I'm not doing that.
So what happened that made the shift for you to get to the place of like, look, I'm not doing that and I'm not worried about how you feel about it?
I will say that a big portion of that is being mature. A few more years, just a few more years on the planet really help decide, what's sacred and what's not. I mean, when you're really young, you can tend to think the clock goes on forever. But when you are, older or more mature, or maybe you have more responsibilities, let's say you're a parent, or you have to take care of some other families, or you have other obligations, those are the ways that you can start to create, not boundaries, but you can be clear about what your capacity is, right? So capacity building is, I like to use the analogy of like, what do they call that instrument? An accordion. Yes. So in other words, you might get an accordion and it comes out of the box and it's kind of tight and squoze together, but then incrementally it expands and the music becomes more melodic or more clear. But again, you're expanding your capacity, but you can still sort of decide to what degree you're going to be, opening it. And I can say, I'm open to that. I'm not open to this.
I like the accordion analogy of like, yes, there's capacity. We can go here, but what does it sound like? How does it feel when we're here versus here? What makes the music great?
Yeah, well, I mean, because sometimes we like think, oh yeah, I'm going to do all this, and it sounds like really terrible. It's like screw it. So,
It's like, okay, that's not part of the song. We'll edit it out.
that's a bad tune, right?
Oh, I love it. What advice would you give your 5-year-old self?
Well, we've had this conversation before, and I'm not going to change what I said before. Which
No,
is,
that's fine. Yeah.
I mean, because it's the thing that I just, it resonates with me deeply, which is I shared when I was little that people would say to me oftentimes, you ask too many questions, and I would be like, but why can't I get the answers? I mean, and so my 5-year-old self, I would say, just keep on answering the questions. Like, don't let people deter you or tell you that it's not okay. Right. I mean, it may have felt like you were being badgered as an adult, like, oh my God, here she comes with all her questions. And then, but I would say, don't stop asking the questions. Just keep asking the questions until you get your answer, or at least till you feel satisfied that you understand why you posed the question, what the answer is significant or meaningful about. And so that's what I would say. Don't ignore the naysayers.
Ask the questions. Keep asking them anyway.
Yep.
I like that because it's so easy to get discouraged, or people, like you said, you ask too many questions. Why are you bothering me? I'm just trying to make dinner. It's, a lot of what your parents might say to you, and you're like, look, no, it's important. Hold it up and say, look, I need an answer.
Yeah, I mean, think about. I wouldn't be asking questions if somebody had just been clearer, right? Like, okay, what is the context? Now when you're young, of course, you're just generally your brain's kind of empty, and you want to fill it up with information and context.
Yeah, a little sponge.
Yeah, yes, you're sponging, and it's again, I'll use an analogy. Which we all probably have experienced. Like, you might meet a dog on the street and they kind of continue to, sniff around your various parts of your body. And you might feel kind of like, what is that about? What dogs are doing is collecting information about you.
That makes sense.
Right. It's like they can't verbally ask the question. So they're going to go get the answers by, circling your physical self to say, okay, that's Unica, or that's Kim, or that's not somebody I like. Right.
Yeah, this is true. That's how you find out really quick. Like, is this a safe space for me? Is this someone that's familiar?
Yes. Yeah.
That makes sense. That's how your dogs get familiar with the world around them. Just kids ask a lot of questions. That's how they get familiar too.
Yep, they're just information gathering.
To even continue asking questions as an adult, I think that's been a big game changer for me. I mean, having this show and talking to different people, the things I have learned, my goodness, like it's been a great experience because I just had no idea. Have there been any surprises in your shift to commercial real estate, things you didn't anticipate?
Yes, and let me tell you what they are. Every industry has a vernacular, like a language that we use, and there's acronyms and shortcuts and verbiage, and the language of commercial real estate is something I'm familiar with, but it's sort of the language that they speak on a daily basis that I wasn't aware of. I'm not fluent in it yet. So, for example, they may be speaking in square footages more often, or they may be speaking in the dollar amount of a square foot more often. The other thing is understanding like it feels very transactional, right? Which I understand that it's transactional, but I didn't realize that it would feel transactional, right?
No, that makes sense. The difference in like the warm, fuzzy sort of experience versus, okay, we're done, and I'll call you in 6 months when I got another deal.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. My background in marketing and business development in the AEC industry was really a lot about developing relationships. And I'm not saying that commercial real estate is not about that, because it's all business is about relationships, because people do business with people they like. But I feel as if what I've been encountering in this new venture is that because remember, you're on commission, you got to, you kind of got to, you're selling. It's very sales driven. And so you have to generate revenue for yourself. And that means it does tend to feel like, I got this deal, I got to get another one in the pipeline. It's like going to the grocery store and you got to turn over the product, right? Nobody wants to buy expired product. So, so that's the one thing I would say is very interesting, is the nature of how the business cycles.
So there's a sense of urgency, it sounds like.
Yes.
To the process. It's not as kind of fluid as, hey, like, we'll spend time here. It's like, look, I gotta really move along on this next thing, because this is how we keep the lights on in the office and at home and everything else flowing. So it's like, as much as I'd love to sit here and spend another 4 hours at dinner, I gotta go.
Yeah. Another analogy. Not everybody knows about golf, but I'm going to use a golf analogy, which is, there's sort of the short game, which includes the chipping and the putting. And then there's the long game, which is about the driving and getting to the next hole. So, or here's another one, sometimes you're big game hunting, and then sometimes you just need to get a couple of squirrels. You know what I'm saying?
You're like, look, sometimes I just need results.
Need results. Right? I mean, because, when you're big game hunting, it takes a lot. It could take longer. It takes more strategy. It takes a lot. Maybe it takes more. So if you're trying to feed yourself or, generate revenue, you might want to work on your short game, right? Okay, I just need to get that ball in the hole. I need to chip it out of the sand trap up on the green, right? So that I can get, I can do the deal, make the money, and move on to the next challenge. So again, I think of things in metaphor and allegory, and how I can apply that to my life. So right now I'm working on my short game.
Understood. You're new. So the short game is important to kind of get those quick wins under your belt and to be able to grow from there. What is like a dream deal for you? Like what would be like a goal for you?
Wow. That's a great question, because that gets to a bigger thing, which is, what is my why? People use that kind of loosely these days. What's your why? What's your purpose? And so one key thing that keeps coming up for me is the fact that I want to have my own real estate investments. I want to own property. I do not believe I'm going to get any reparations. And so
I don't think I am either. So
you know what I'm saying? So I just feel like my goal would be to have a portfolio of assets, of real estate assets, that would be meaningful, not only to me personally, but to others, right? So when I'm thinking about what I want to do, I think about being in service to others.
I love it. She's like, okay, I have all these things, but they're not all for me. They're for me to be able to serve my community and the people who are really trying to figure out that next step in the ladder, so they can move forward enough as well.
Yes, that's a driver for me. And I don't think I realized what it was. I didn't give it a name. But, I think as COVID has really sort of helped all of us get clear about our priorities, that is a driving factor for me, which is how can I be of service, and in what way does that show up? And I want it to be permanent and when I'm long gone, right?
Like, what is the legacy here that you're building?
Yes. What is the legacy here? No, that's a primary driver for me. That
is an excellent driver. I think that it's a better than money driver, because it does not offer the kind of limitations of, if I'm a billionaire, then I've made it. Like legacy could be so far reaching. It could be beyond our own imagination how far it goes. We could talk centuries.
Oh, yeah. And of course, you've heard people say, do what you love, the money will follow. And I do believe that, when you do things that you love, not only does the money follow, but the joy and the fulfillment and the enrichment, like there's more to it than, you can be wildly Elon Musk or, Jeff Bezos successful. But if I'm not creating an opportunity, and I don't mean a job, being an Amazon car driver or whatever, but that mostly that the value that you have generated is actually helping create a better life for other people, or, and I mean, not transactional, I mean like sustainable.
Right. As in like, now I can purchase the home to raise my family in.
Yep. Basics like that.
And I love that you refer to it as basics, because I feel like some people think those things are a privilege, and it scares me to think that people see that way. Like having a home is like a basic human right.
Right. How about this? Being able to have access to food anytime you need it. And I live in California, and we grow a lot of food here for the United States and other places. And yet there are people here who are starving, which makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are the things that keep me up at night. And I wrote about this recently. I was like, I have to sometimes remind myself to do what I can, rather than get stuck into, okay, these are the things that I would love to see fixed in the world, but I'm one person. But if all of us as individuals do our part, the impact can be made.
Yeah. And so here's the thing. I mean, I would like to solve world hunger.
Right.
But I that's like just too big of an initiative. Like I just can't even, wouldn't know where to begin. However, I could do something on a much smaller, more local scale, or I can contribute to smaller local business entities that I could support. Right. So it doesn't have to be like a big splashy thing that one does. It's just that you have to do it. Right.
Do it. Yes. Go for it.
Here's an example, supporting, say, a Black-owned business that maybe sells things that I don't need, right? Or sells things I do need. But I'm saying, or supporting, when there's a fundraiser, maybe you throw in your, $10 or $20 where you can, and it may not feel as if you've made a big contribution, but, everybody knows that just a little bits add up to a lot of a bit.
Yes, it does. And I remind myself of that. People are like, okay, yeah, I can go to Walmart and buy my shampoo, or I can buy it from Padana Collection, because it's a Black-owned business. The woman is, the scientist behind the formula. And so that's what I buy, and I've been buying since I learned about it last year.
Right. And the thing is that, depending on your resources, because sometimes it really is about resources, is that, I'm willing to pay that premium, right? Knowing that it's actually helping someone have a living, raise their family, right? I'm willing to pay that extra premium, right? Because I know that it's going somewhere. So there's an intentionality to those sort of transactions. It's intentional when I decide to make a purchase over, where I buy my food, or where I go get my hair done, or, how I engage with people. So those things really matter to me.
Yeah, but I love that you're intentional about the little things.
What do they say? God or the devil's in the details.
God or the devil, just
it depends on which side of the fence you're on. I'm not even talking about religion. I'm just saying.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Is there anything I have not asked that you'd like to share?
Well, actually, I would like to ask, how can I help you?
Well, I think it's real simple for me. If you can just share career conversations with people, let them know it exists. Let me know if there are good guests that would be, positive influence and willing to share their knowledge with others. Like that's the biggest ask I got right now. It's just like, share, comment, let people know the show exists. That's really it for me.
Yeah. I did want to share one last thing. Remember I was talking about, we talk about sort of my larger career, in the AEC, in the commercial real estate industry, that's sort of where I'm living these days. But I also have another part of my life that is equally as important, which is about youth advocacy. And I love young people. And I have shared with you before that I do some college advising, and it's actually college and career advising, because when people want to think about what job they want when they grow up, right? That's sort of what school do you think you want to go to, or maybe it's not going to a 4-year college, maybe it's going to a community college, or maybe it's a vocational or technical school where you're going to get certain skill sets. But so last year I spent 5 weeks working with rising 12th graders on getting their college application process aligned. And one of the young women that I work with got a full scholarship to UC Davis. Now, I don't know if what I did contributed, but I want to take a few little points that I helped her do that and get to that place. And the thing that I learned is one, no matter where you're from, no matter whether you have limited access to money and other resources, that people's ability to learn and to have a bright mind is not about race. It is not about gender. It's not those things. And so I was working with under-resourced, marginalized students, and that's the category of people I prefer to work with. And to have her get a full scholarship, to UC Davis was a really big deal, because you have to get in there.
Yes, that all by itself was a difficult step.
Yes,
so to get full scholarship offers is major.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. The other thing I would share is that I realized when working with this population, while they may have great scores and they can write great decent essays and they have these aspirations, the one area that I think I helped the most and found out that I was better at was executive functioning skills. And I realized that a lot of young people can tend to not be organized. I mean, they're organized in their own world, but they are not necessarily organized so that they can execute. So in other words, where's your login? Where's the password? Where's your transcript live? Have you really thought about, the sort of the full arc of what it means to apply to college, from, doing all the applications, but then you have to remember that you have your family to be a part of the process, right? Because if you want financial aid, you've got to get your parents' information. Your parents have to understand what's important. Sometimes there's shame or difficulty and issues around, and that's grown folks' business, and you can't that you shouldn't be knowing these things. So again, helping young people navigate how to access certain confidential materials that would allow them to do the application process without any hitches and last minute catastrophe. So, and I would attribute that to being in a marketing role where there's always deadlines and you have to be organized.
That is awesome. And the work that you're doing with the youth is super important. I think about my own leaving for college experience, how I did really well in high school and things really fell apart for my family at graduation. My mom had gotten remarried, her husband had walked out. So many things happened that I did not leave for school until that following year almost. And the reason that I was even able to enroll in my community college is because my high school principal found out I was still there and said, "No, ma'am, you will not sit around for an entire year," and literally picked me up, drove me to the local community college, made sure I took my compass test, made sure I got enrolled and registered for classes. And that's how my college career began.
Well,
and so we really do need people like you who are advocating for our youth. So thank you for that. And I wish you incredible success in that area as well.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. It really matters to me. And I just will add, and I know we're going to wrap it up here, is that COVID has really impacted young people. They've missed some real key milestones like proms or football games, or, maybe athletic competitions, or, or summer camps, or, I mean, you just can name the full range of things, like just being outside riding your bicycle, or having sleepovers, or, getting a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Yeah, your first crush and the little dates you go on to the movies or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
all that
they
stuff
miss
can
that.
happen.
Yeah, they miss those things, or getting into trouble. I don't know, just again.
That too.
Well, that too, but I'm saying developmentally, those are different things that help you start to become an adult, or realize your position in the world, or how to navigate and negotiate or self-advocate. And so there's almost been a little bit of a regression because of COVID, and some tentativeness around how to be in the world and not knowing. And I'm going to give you some hilarious examples because they're just fun things to know, right? And my daughter, I don't know if she can hear me, but it was hilarious. But, she asked me, I asked her the other day to go buy some hamburgers. Now she's at a community college. And so she thought that the hamburger was in the deli.
Oh, she tried.
Right. I mean, and then I have a friend who told me that her daughter was in school in Chicago, and she was at the laundromat, and she says, "Mom, I'm running out of quarters. Would you mind mailing me some quarters?"
It's like, get $1 bill, stick it in a little machine over there. I mean, but that's a very real thing. I had interns a year or two ago, and they weren't really confident in how to answer the phone, some of them, or how to use the copy machine. Like, those are things you take for granted. But it's valid when you grow up and those are not a part of your regular life or world. I mean, that's like flashing back when I was a kid, like in the introduction of cell phones. Like, there's things we didn't know then. Like, I mean, mind you, copy machines and regular desk phones have been around far longer. But
yes.
But like you said, that part of the executive functioning to get in that exposure, like I love that you share that, because I hope that it gives employers the concept of like, these may be some of the gaps you may witness in interviews, and extend grace and be willing to train in these areas rather than write off some of your potential best candidates.
Yeah. And when I talk about executive functioning skills, I hope people understand what it means. It's not about being an executive, right, at all. And one of the things that I was really counseling this young group about was that in all of these, things you're processing, right, the things that are very obvious, part of that executive functioning skill was to be aware of what you need personally, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of can tend not to be, like, so here's an example. Let's say you have some health issues. Let's say maybe you're diabetic, or you might need to, maybe you're on particular medicine, or maybe you need to have birth control, or any number of things you might need, or maybe you wear glasses, and to consider way before you go off to college, wherever it is, that you will need to go, months in advance, go get those health checkups. If you have medicines, you might need to have a prescription for 2 or 3 months worth of it. You can't just go to a new doctor, right? You got to go, if you went to another state, you've got to go to a new physician who then treats you, right? You can't just assume Dr. Unica, in Florida
is going to write you a prescription because you had one before.
They don't do that. They don't have that. That doesn't work. So I'm saying you can find yourself being surprised if you don't have the things you need personally before you go off into the grown-up world, whether it's to college or you get your own apartment, right? So that's a part of the executive functioning skills. It includes all the very logical things and management things, but it also really includes about self-awareness and what you might need to, maintain your humanity.
Amen. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with you. I love the conversation about executive function, especially for people that are entering adulthood, and even heck, some adults could use some help. Let's be serious.
Yeah, we know some of those people.
So, Kim Pipkin, you all, she is the founder of Black Kite Consulting. She is a DEI and youth advocate. She is also a commercial real estate broker. And if you'd like to get in touch with her, just reach out to me. I will connect you guys. Kim, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you all for watching Career Conversations. Love y'all. Until next time.
Thank you, Unica. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.